Hey everyone, and welcome to our new show, Who Doesn't Like a List, where we take a topic and rank the movies or whatever else we're looking for in that topic. Today we're going to talk about the franchise I know and love best, Star Trek. Ground rules: there are 3 lists. My personal opinion, where I'll be telling you why I rank them the way I do personally. The objective list, where I try and be as objective as possible to rank these movies and to make some additional comments on why I think they should be where they are objectively. And finally, the audience list. This list is the rankings based on the Rotten Tomatoes audience score. If there are any ties based on the audience score, the tie goes to the movie with the highest critic score. Disclaimer: the personal and objective lists are still my opinion. This isn't supposed to be any sort of declarative perfect list, just a fun making a list and starting a conversation sort of video. Oh, and this list will not include any non-theater released movies. Looking at you, Section 31. Additionally, the personal and objective lists were made before I looked up all the audience scores, so they had no influence on either of the lists. All that fun stuff out of the way, let's get to it. Number 13. Oh, I know we're starting the list off spicy. Hear me out. There is no individual part of this movie that is bad, per se. But when it all got put together, it turns into a mess. You're already walking a fine line when you have a reboot franchise. It gives you carte blanche to do anything you want. But then you turn around and make a way worse version of Wrath of Khan. The premise of this movie of Bad Admiral, in regards to Admiral Marcus, played by the wonderful Peter Weller, was fine on its own, and Khan was just kind of tacked on to the story. Never mind the fake out that Benedict Cumberbatch's Khan was held on to for way too long. My second personal gripe is I'm tired of seeing the Enterprise getting the shit beat out of it in these movies, which is not necessarily a just this movie problem, but did you know this is only the second Star Trek movie where the Enterprise never fires a shot? True story. Only Star Trek 4 matches it, and only because the Enterprise A is in it for about 3 seconds at the end of the movie, so at least it has that excuse. The Kelvinverse ones are marketed as big action movies, so there's no need for something like this to happen. You'd never see JJ treat the Millennium Falcon in the same way, for example. The design of the USS Vengeance is also frustrating. It's just a bigger, darker Kelvinverse Constitution class. I'm really tired of the big bad ship in science fiction just being a bigger ship than the hero ship. There's so many more clever ways of doing it, and they just refuse to do it. I have the same issue with something like Starkiller Base in Star Wars, but that's for a different list later. The fact that they teased the Vengeance by almost a Borg-looking shipyard is kind of a letdown too, although I say that and the Borg have been way overplayed, especially since Star Trek Picard came out. But a Kelvinverse take on the Borg might have been interesting. This all being said, there are still some redeemable scenes and moments in this film. I particularly enjoy the scene where Khan reveals himself and talks about why he's doing everything he does. I think my issue is I see so much potential in this movie and it got squandered. Number 12. The one everyone expected to be at the very bottom is only delayed for one spot. This movie has a ton of issues with it, mainly that they had some interesting ideas that they squandered. The Nimbus 3 scenes were painful, even though we got some David Warner action. The almost disrespectful way they abused Scotty, as far as making him look like an idiot getting knocked out for a joke. The quote unquote surprise, here's my brother thing was a little played out, and retroactively makes Sarek look a bit scummy. I think Cybok could have been played just as a Vulcan with an alternative viewpoint to Spock, similar to the storylines we see in Star Trek Enterprise. The Klingons being the obligatory bad guys weren't really needed. They were basically just around to move the plot along a little faster, but I think it could have been handled in a much better way. The positives for this movie, because it wouldn't be silver lining reviews if we just crapped on a movie. The camping scenes with Kirk, Spock, and McCoy at Yosemite are amazing. The scene where Cybok makes McCoy go through the memory of him euthanizing his father all over again was heartbreaking, and probably the most serious scene we've ever seen DeForest Kelley play. Honestly, the whole scene was really well done across the board. And of course,
What does God need with a starship?
number 11. The other Star Trek movie most people put at the bottom is still here. Honestly, there isn't a lot to say here. It's just a middling movie overall that feels more like an okay-ish Next Generation two-parter than an actual movie. This movie suffers from a weak story that is only held up by the acting talent of the cast. The positives of this film: the scenes with Data and the kid are pretty okay. In all honesty, that's really the problem here. It's just such a forgettable movie. It's there and it's gone. The visual effects are still good, but other than that, all it has going for it is having another adventure with this crew, which admittedly is never a bad thing. Number 10. More controversy. That's why this is my personal list. It is much higher on the objective list, I promise. Here's the issue. I do not enjoy most Star Trek episodes where the crew travels back to modern day Earth. They just don't work for me. I'm 99% sure it's because I watch Star Trek as a form of escapism, so when they travel back to modern day Earth, it's just not escapism anymore. I also get secondhand embarrassment easily, and these are always fish out of water type stories, which I don't particularly enjoy. That all being said, I acknowledge this movie is very well written with a lot of funny one liners and clever dialogue. My favorite scene being where they are rescuing Chekhov from the hospital and McCoy refers to the Dark Ages. It's purely a me thing that I just don't go to this movie often, so it's not high on my list. Oh, and the fact they dedicated it to the Challenger crew is lovely as well. Number 9. The final voyage of our illustrious crew during the Berman era Star Trek. This movie has plenty of faults to be sure, including going to the planet with the dune buggy. But there's still some excellent dialogue between Tom Hardy and Patrick Stewart, some great action sequences, including Troy kicking ass with this great moment.
Remember me.
Still much further down the list as, while good, didn't really achieve its full potential. It suffered from trying to be an action movie first and a Star Trek movie second. And when it's the last Star Trek Next Generation movie, you should really be less concerned about broad appeal than really making your core fans happy. Especially this movie came out within 9 days of Lord of the Rings The Two Towers releasing. Ouch. Number 8. 7 years after the franchise's last foray into the big screen, J.J. Abrams decided he needed a sizzle reel for how he would be as a Star Wars director, and so Paramount gave him the keys to Star Trek, and we got J.J.'s best Star Wars movie. While it is a solid Star Trek movie, it feels like a Star Wars movie. Its best scene, arguably, is the introduction, which is the biggest holy crap intro to a Star Trek movie we've seen. There's so much heart and emotion in this opening sequence, you just can't help but like it. Unfortunately, most of what we get afterwards is a step below, outside of the happy feeling of seeing Leonard Nimoy as Spock again, even though it thoroughly messes with the Prime universe. JJ's first venture into the Star Trek universe was better than his second, but still falls short as far as a Star Trek feel. Number 7. Hey look, the last of the Kelvinverse. While this movie may not have been a box office hit, mostly because of poor marketing campaign in my humble opinion, it is the most Star Trek feeling of the Kelvin Star Trek movies. I know the likes of Critical Drinker aren't a big fan of this movie, and I can understand some of his points. One of them I would debate is the idea that they're using the Wrath of Khan Kirk midlife crisis in this Kirk, who should be in his prime. On the surface, I can understand this sentiment. However, this film makes it work, as Captain Kirk has officially passed his dad in how long he lived, which is making him a little more wistful. In all honesty, I have total buy-in to this storyline. That and the realization of exploring the great unknown hasn't been all that it's been cracked up to be. On top of this, they do a great job of pairing the cast off after they are stranded on Krall's planet. McCoy and Spock, Kirk and Chekhov, rest in peace, Anton Yelchin, and Sulu and Uhura. Plus, they got super special bonuses for including Star Trek Enterprise into the storyline with how the Franklin looks, as well as the story of what happened to a military officer turned Starfleet captain in Idris Elba's character. Makes my little Trek heart happy. Oh, one big gripe. Once again, the Enterprise gets the snot beaten out of it to the point where it gets destroyed. I do enjoy that they allude to a better Star Trek movie, referring to the fact that the Enterprise has one more kick left in her after the saucer section crashes onto the planet. But for the love of God, set your torpedoes to proximity detonation for crying out loud. All that being said, it is a little lower on my list. While not a JJ film, it suffers from some JJ-isms, such as apparently needing the Beastie Boys to save the day. All in all, a good movie in the franchise. Number 6. I know what I said in the Let's Say Nice Things about Star Trek the Motion Picture, that it's probably a top 5 movie for me personally, and here we are sitting at number 6. When we get to this part of the list, it's a little more fluid. Any given day, I could shuffle the 4 through 6 movies around, and this particular day, this is where the motion picture ended up. I won't wax overly long since I already have a video about this movie, and I'll put that in the description. But suffice it to say, this is the most Star Trek feeling movie of the franchise, as it should be, being the first Star Trek movie to ever come out. It has its flaws for sure, but if you need to give someone a solid example of what Star Trek is about, this is the movie you go to for better or for worse. Number 5. Another one of the flip-floppy ones 4 through 6. I adore this movie, not just because Nimoy directed it, but it has all of the heart you expect from a Star Trek film. All the sacrifices Kirk is willing to make to get Spock back, his career, his son, his ship, it all comes together in such a brilliant way and can't help but tug on the heartstrings. Also, Christopher Lloyd's performance in this film is underappreciated. Number 4. This movie is 1,000,000% nostalgia for me. It's one of those movies I grew up watching with my dad on a VHS tape, so I am 100% influenced by that in this ranking. That said, Patrick Stewart's performance is excellent, especially the scene where he talks to Troy about his family being killed in the house fire, as well as his dialogues with Malcolm McDowell.
They say time is the fire in which we burn.
No, they don't, but it's a damn good line. Kirk's sacrifice scene at the beginning with the Enterprise B is also well done. Fighting that urge to take command to go get the deflector up is amazing. I know some people have criticized director David Carson for this movie, but given the tools he had to work with, he did an amazing job. I absolutely love the dynamic lighting. I know it's because they had to hide the fact that they were using TV sets, but it's done so effectively. Budgetary issues sometimes cause the best creative decisions, such as a movie later on in this list, and I think in some aspects the same can be said here. You'll find this one lower on the objective list for a few reasons, but it's up here for me personally. Number 3. Top 3. This one and the number 2 movie in my personal list also jockey for position at times, but 3 is a good spot for this one. Especially coming off Final Frontier, you had to wonder if this crew had any more gas in the tank, and you definitely argue it saved its best for last. The murder mystery aspect, the political overtones, the racial overtones, there is so much classic Star Trek storytelling here, and it's all excellent. The one absolute only complaint I have ever heard about this movie is sometimes the script goes a little over the top with Christopher Plummer's General Chang Shakespeare quotes, especially in the climax. I hardly call that criticism though, it's an absolute classic for the franchise and one of my personal favorites. Number 2. I feel like most people's lists I see are a toss-up between First Contact and Wrath of Khan at the top, and honestly I wouldn't debate you either way. I absolutely love this movie, from the introduction to the Enterprise E, to Picard's PTSD regarding the Borg, the awesome space battle at the beginning of the movie, the balance between heavy drama on the ship and the lighthearted nature of the story on Earth. This movie is just brilliant from bow to stern. I think my highlight of this movie is a toss-up between the classic line,
"The line must be drawn here,"
and the communication/distress signal the bridge listens to.
All units, open fire. Remodulate shield check.
Man, I'm a sucker for a good distress signal. Number 1. I mean, what can I say that hasn't been said before about this movie? I think that's one of the biggest knocks for Star Trek Into Darkness. The fact that they even attempted to do their version of this movie was a mistake. Dare I say this is a perfect movie. It's a story of relatable emotions between Kirk's getting older, thinking his best years are behind him, Khan's need for revenge, and finally the sacrifice of Spock for his friends. Even if you're not a big Star Trek fan, this movie can resonate with you. Well, those are all my personal ones. Now we've got to go back and look at this list objectively. Number 13. In its proper spot, though I find a few scenes endearing, it is such a slog and chore to get to those moments. Number 12. While I adore this movie and find it to be the most Star Trek feeling movie of the franchise, I recognize that it's a tough one to slog through, especially after having the campiness of the original series. Number 11. This movie is regarded as probably the worst send-off a Star Trek series crew could have had, at least until the Star Trek Enterprise finale happened. Number 10. Like the personal list, this is kind of a big nothing burger of a movie, but since it feels more like a so-so two-parter than something egregious, it gets a little bit higher on the list. Number 9. For all its faults, I do see this one slightly higher than the previous TNG movies for Patrick Stewart's acting, the novelty of seeing the Enterprise D on the big screen, the crossover between Kirk and catching a glimpse of that elusive, forgotten years of Star Trek between the original series part of the timeline and Next Generation's part of the timeline, puts this movie slightly ahead of the others that came earlier on this list. Number 8. For all my gripes about this movie, if I'm being as objective as I can, this movie does still have some thrills and exciting action, as well as some quality acting moments between Chris Pine and Benedict Cumberbatch. Number 7. If I'm doing my best to be objective, this movie has some pacing issues and suffers from undercutting the dramatic beats of Wrath of Khan. That said, it's worth having Spock back. Number 6. While I personally enjoy it best of the Calvinverse Trek, I can see it sitting below the first JJ Trek, as it is a little slower and the solution to the problem is a bit more absurd. Number 5. I'm trying to be as objective as possible, so maybe it should be a little higher, but I have a hard time with the time travel still. It's excellently written and every character has a great moment in this movie, and honestly, you can't ask for much more than that. Number 4. This movie starts with action and puts the foot to the floor and never lets up. While its breakneck speed has its own issues, you can't argue you'll be entertained throughout. Number 3. Business as usual. Number 2. Keep moving along. Number 1. And there's your objective list. Now for the fun list. Older Star Trek fans look away, but I'd love to hear what everyone thinks of this Rotten Tomatoes list.
All units, open fire. Remodulate shield protector.
They've broken through the defense perimeter. To order. Pursuit force. Cube is changing course. 0, 2, 1, lock, hold.
Alliance continues to attack. Flag to service command. We need reinforcements.
Captain me.
And after all said and done, the best Star Trek movie according to Rotten Tomatoes audience is Star Trek 2009. I think I'm going to be sick.
I may throw up on you.
Thank you all so much for watching. If you made it this far, please drop a like and please consider subscribing, as only a solid 3% of viewers on the channel are subscribers. And if you bounced around to see the lists, zero judgment, I'd love to hear what you think, so please consider leaving a comment. Thank you all so much for the love and support, and I hope I see you in the next one.